not even a dozen examples of people being mean to Joe Kennedy and his family online. So the letter reads the following. Dear John, in recent weeks, the tone and tenor of the Markey for Senate campaign and people associated with it have reached dangerous levels. Despite repeated public requests for Senator Markey and his campaign to disavow and condemn the vitriol of his supporters, particularly online, your campaign has responded with silence, ridicule, and thinly veiled efforts to actually incite further attacks on Joe Kennedy, his family, his staff, and his supporters. This tacit endorsement of such negativity has given your supporters license to not only target student fellows, destroy campaign materials, and vandalize campaign property, but to launch death threats against Joe himself and revisit the assassinations of his grandfather and great-uncle. We understand it is not anyone paid by the Markey campaign making these threats, but it is the direct result of the toxic online ecosystem your campaign has allowed at best and encouraged at worst. It has now reached the point where our campaign has to report death threats to Capitol Police on a near daily basis. The negativity of the quote Markey verse that is cringeworthy as hell is not random, one-off, or haphazard. It is a pattern of behavior. Sound familiar? One that has grown more vitriolic and unwieldy by the day. It began before Joe entered this race, when one of the senator's top political advisors launched a personal attack on Joe's family online, and despite initial condemnation, the campaign chose to reward him afterwards. It continues with direct interventions from top Markey campaign aides, sharing offensive content and disparaging Kennedy volunteers, doing nothing but supporting their chosen candidate. The death threats and assassination references are beyond the pale, but it is petty and personal attacks on our supporters that we find the most disheartening. Reasonable minds can disagree about who to support in this race between two progressive candidates who undoubtedly share deep political values, but no matter what side you fall on, we should be able to agree that those who volunteer their time, talent, energy, and passion to help drive the democratic process should be commended and celebrated, not disparaged, ridiculed, or attacked. In the age of Donald Trump, sound familiar, and the existential threat he poses to our democracy, honesty and authentic political participation is more sacred than ever. When this came up in our last debate, the senator claimed no knowledge of it. For all of your reference, I have included a sample of what Joe and our team have faced online for months. First, the death threats and allusions to murdered family members. And then they show a screenshot of a tweet where Alex Thompson shows off a button from the Kennedy campaign saying he's going full Kennedy in the final month with these vintage buttons. And they then point out a comment where somebody responds saying he went full Kennedy. Rip, thoughts and prayers, his young widow. That's ruthless, but it's hilarious. They then point to another tweet saying we should go all out copying Gramps. There's another tweet of President Kennedy getting shot. Somebody then tagged Lee Harvey Oswald saying, we could really use you right about now. Another person says, I think we should help him out if he wants to go full Kennedy. Heading to the dealer plaza right now. In reference to an ad released by Ed Markey, someone said, Ed Markey murdered the entire Kennedy dynasty with just one line of this ad, pun intended, your move, Lee Harvey Oswald. Another person said, might as well call Ed Markey Lee Harvey Oswald, because he just killed a Kennedy. Damn. The letter then continues, second the nasty, of course, and personal attacks on Joe and our team done by supporters often directly connected to your campaign, your fellows, volunteers, and organizers. Then they show a picture of a dinosaur saying, fuck Joe Kennedy. Oh no. They then show off a tweet of someone criticizing his staff saying, how can you be a Kennedy and still manage to make some of the worst staff hires of any campaign this cycle? They then link to someone with a Twitter banner that says, fuck off Joe Kennedy. I second that. They then share a meme that says, fuck Joe Kennedy, all of my homies hate Joe Kennedy. Love that. Finally, they conclude by saying, you and I are both campaign veterans. We know that supporters get passionate. We know that in the heat of an election, things get sharp, but we also know that at the end of the day, the buck stops with the candidate and his or her campaign. We both have the opportunity and the responsibility to set the tone for our supporters to follow. Unfortunately, your campaign has chosen to do the opposite. I am hoping cooler heads prevail here, and we can agree that this has gone too far. As you celebrate and promote your social media following in Ed Markey for Senate campaign material, materials, you must acknowledge the influence you can have on those who follow you. We are requesting a personal and public statement from Senator Markey himself, instructing his followers to immediately end the attacks on Joe's supporters, the threats to Joe and his family's life, and the destruction of Kennedy from Massachusetts campaign materials and property. Please note, members of the media have been copied on this letter to encourage accountability. Sincerely, Nick Clemens. Now, the fact that they CC'd the media in this message, it tells you everything that you need to know about this. It is bullshit. It's a manufactured outrage campaign. Sharing some people joking about him getting assassinated, that is not tantamount to Ed Markey promoting this. It's not tantamount to a death threat. It's just memes in poor taste, right? But you're going to find this about any campaign, right? You could point out weirdos or randos and say, look at what your supporters are doing. But that doesn't mean that the candidate is responsible for that. Like, this is the same exact thing we saw with the Bernie bro myth. They were pointing to snake emojis that Bernie Sanders supporters were sending to Elizabeth Warren as evidence of quote-unquote harassment. And Elizabeth Warren even admitted that the snake emojis in part were the reason why she refused to endorse Bernie Sanders. So either this is an attempt to manufacture outrage to help you get elected, or Democrats are just so fucking fragile that they can't even take random people on Twitter getting zero attention criticizing them. I mean, give it up. Give it up. But my favorite part about this story, my favorite part about all of this faux outrage is the response to one of these criticisms, one of the harassment that we've seen by Joe Kennedy's wife. So in response to the particular comment where someone said, he went full Kennedy, rip, thoughts and prayers to his young widow, she actually responded to that, and her comment honestly made me laugh. This young widow would be me. And this is what Ed Markey's campaign condones.
Magma's neck looked like a
Oh my
sirloin
god,
steak.
shut the fuck up. I hate Democrats. Now, to Joe Kennedy's credit, he actually has been making a bit of a pivot to the left and supporting Medicare for all. But the difference here is that Ed Markey is saying you're only supporting these because you're primarying me, and I supported these before you. Now, again, you can argue the extent to which Ed Markey actually supports these policies, but he supports them a hell of a lot more than Joe Kennedy does. And being the sponsor of the Green New Deal, at least Ed Markey is more serious about climate change than someone like Joe Kennedy. But I mean, this is all that Democrats have. When they are running primary campaigns, they cannot beat the leftists on policy. So they have to basically cry and say, you're mean to me. My feelings are hurt. Like, you are basically that meme, like the snowflake SJW meme that right-wingers use, like you're making that a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you're being the worst caricature that Republicans present you as by acting like this and doing shit like this. But again, when you have nothing else to campaign on, when you can't really outflank the person who you're challenging on policy or to the left, you have to resort to dumb shit like this. It's why Elizabeth Warren was criticizing Bernie bros, right? Now, what I do appreciate is that Ed Markey's campaign manager actually publicly responded to this, and he was kind of defiant. Like, he didn't back down and take the bait, although he did a little bit, but not as bad as Bernie Sanders did with regard to the whole Bernie bro kerfuffle and smear. So we responded online saying, Nick, thanks for the email. Since you sent it with reporters BCC'd, I guess I'll just respond here for the accountability you're looking for, of course. I'm disappointed that as someone I have known for years, you are choosing to end this campaign with crocodile tears. Senator Markey has condemned all vile and hateful speech surrounding this race, and you know it. The Markey campaign has put up with nonstop Kennedy campaign supported harassment, including a pickup truck spewing negative attacks literally every day at our campaign events, attended by families and young people. We don't whine or complain about your ridiculous campaign supported stunts, because we are focused on our campaign's positive message and supporters. If reporters would like photographic proof of Kennedy campaign attacks and harassment, they can get in touch with me. Instead of more disingenuous political stunts, the Kennedy campaign should join ours in closing out the race, discussing solutions to the real injustices people face: Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, racial and economic justice, as Senator Markey has done since day one. And oh yeah, almost forgot, he then tagged the campaign manager for Joe Kennedy. So I think that's a pretty good response. I mean, he made fun of them for their crocodile tears, basically poked fun at them for pearl clutching, and I think that that's what you have to do. Like, he did say, of course we condemn these vile attacks, but rather than saying that, you're kind of like tacitly admitting guilt. Just say, why don't you condemn the violent attacks that your supporters have been lobbing against us first, and then we'll follow your lead. Be a leader in this instance. Like, do something like that, because what they want you to do is admit guilt when you have to deny that narrative. Like, reject the narrative altogether, because it is just that. It's a narrative. It's fake. It's bogus. Like, you're always going to find someone online who is critical of you. I can go on, the comment section of this YouTube video, which I will not do, and find a bunch of people criticizing me. That doesn't mean that this is harassment or anything. Like, people online are vocal, and you're going to always find someone who's a critic. If you're a public figure, you know this. So stop trying to weaponize it for purposes of political expediency, you goddamn insufferable hacks. But this is exactly what, Democrats do, because they have nothing. As this person said, they have no substance.
First, Joe Kennedy Senate race. Joe Kennedy is challenging incumbent Ed Markey in the Senate. Massachusetts is holding its primary on September 1st, so we're just about like 4 or 5 days out at this point. And 3 Massachusetts Senate polls have come out. So Suffolk University has Markey plus 10, Data Progress has Markey plus 7, and UMass Lowell has Markey up 12 points. And if you average all those out, it has Markey up 9.7. So this is really good news, because Ed Markey's seat is very important to hold. He's a Green New Deal supporter with AOC. AOC has been a pretty unabashed supporter of his this whole time. And more importantly, Joe Kennedy is extremely corporate. He's very milquetoast, and he's a really, really big sellout. He's not for things like Medicare for All. He is Nancy Pelosi. So much so that she decided to endorse Joe Kennedy over sitting Senator Ed Markey. Now, this is not something that means you should get complacent and not, vote or be enthusiastic or donate to him or anything like that. It's important to make sure to do all of those things to finish out this victory. I'm also hopeful that hopefully Nancy Pelosi's endorsement of Joe Kennedy will actually be sort of a Uno reverse card move, sort of like Hillary Clinton's endorsement of Elliot Engel was. How that was kind of the kiss of death for his campaign. But this is really good news. We got really good numbers here on Ed Markey's race. Now we got to look at Alex Morse versus Richard Neal in Massachusetts 1st District to see what kind of results we get there. Hopefully we can pull that one off. That one's going to come pretty razor thin. But, we will hold out hope. So, really, I would say it's even, considering the state of the race, I would say that supporting Alex Morse right now actually takes precedence over Ed Markey, because as you can see, Ed Markey is pretty much demolishing his opponent. And I don't really see how Joe Kennedy could win. Could some sort of freak incident happen or some result or something like that? Yeah, sure. But it just seems unlikely to me. So this is some good news. We got good numbers for Ed Markey. We really need to hold the seat. But man, he is demolishing right now.